and welcome to another episode of the Rhode Island Small Business Coalition's Small Business Forum. I'm your host, David Dadekian, a small business owner here in Rhode Island. I own Eat Drink Rhode Island. And with us today is the mayor of Providence, the current mayor of Providence, who's also running for re-election this year, Mayor Brett Smiley. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you for being here. You're certainly a well-known figure in Rhode Island politics. You've been around for quite some time, and obviously you've been mayor for the last 4 years. Looking for another 4. Why don't you tell folks out there who may not know you as well a little bit about your background and all before we dive in.
So I'm finishing my first term as mayor, but I've been in public service for a little while. Prior to having been elected, I served as the state's director of administration in the Raimondo administration. And before that was the chief of staff to Governor Raimondo. She pulled me from Providence City Hall. I had been the chief operating officer at the beginning of the Alorza administration. And before that was a small business owner myself. And started in 2007 and actively ran until 2014 my own small business, which I'm proud to say, while I haven't worked there in years, is still going. And that sense of pride that I know many small business owners have, that not only do they pour their heart and soul into something, but that feeling that you get where you realize that you're providing salaries and careers and for other people as well. And so there's a couple of people that work at my old business still doing really well. And I'm really pleased to have done my part for what is actually the big part of Rhode Island's economy. Small business is big business here in Rhode Island.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think people forget that sometimes. We say it often. If you put together all the small businesses, it's the largest sector, much bigger than your CVS's and Fidelity's and all those fantastic large companies, but, much different when you put them all together like that. So let's talk about, you've been in office, you've been mayor, so obviously there's a lot you can lean on for what you've already done and what's been passed. But I also want to talk about, the future, because you are running for re-election. Let's start with what you have been doing. Let's talk about, where you see small business changes that have happened over the last 4 years. What do you think have been some great successes or things you want to do?
No, so we started early and for the last several years have done a small business survey to hear from business owners directly about what their top priorities are in terms of what they need from the city. And believe it or not, the thing that did not come to the top of the list were things like taxes or loan programs. But what we heard from small business owners is that they want a safer city. They want better infrastructure. They want better sidewalks and cleaner streets and no crime. And in some cases, a visible police presence to give their customers or employees the confidence that they need to come shop and come to work. And so that has been a large focus of my first 3 years in office. On the public safety front, we've made great progress. Last year, the calendar year that ended December 31st, was the lowest level of crime in 30 years in the city of Providence. And this is evidence in every neighborhood in Providence, particularly for the downtown business owners, which we care about all of our small business owners. But downtown and Kennedy Plaza, Burnside Park had been a decided focus, to be sure. And now there's a much more visible police presence and an improved environment down there for everyone who takes the bus to work or comes downtown to go shopping or to see a show, enjoy some of our incredible restaurants or entertainment venues. The whole city is just a safer place. We've also made meaningful infrastructure investments. We're spending more money on sidewalks than has been spent in a generation, and these are happening. The way we're doing sidewalk work, which is directly geared towards our supports for small businesses, is we have in-house crews that are doing one-off squares around the neighborhoods for residents who've had heaving or crumbling sidewalks. But then we're using outside help to redo entire commercial corridors, understanding that we want people to be able to walk to their neighborhood shops, that we want these commercial corridors to be vibrant. So, for example, all of Chalkstone Avenue got redone, Hope Street got redone, and there's many more to come. But we've been prioritizing whole contiguous strips of sidewalk replacement specifically to align with commercial corridors. That, in conjunction with street repaving, a lot of sewer work to make sure that nobody's businesses are flooding or residents. And so those have been two areas of market progress that directly respond to the feedback we heard from business owners. But then we've also tried to be reactive. We know in be a tough job to be a small business owner. And no matter which business you're in, you're subjected to the realities of weather and of other outside factors that are outside of your control. And so after the Washington Bridge shut down, we helped advocate for and then facilitate business grants to affected merchant areas. Most recently, after the Brown shooting, we were able to come up with and then secure matching funds from both the state and Brown for grants to the merchants associations surrounding Brown. And so we try to be nimble enough to not just do these proactive, long-term investments in the things that the city is directly responsible for, but then offer assistance when necessary, understanding that some of these things happen outside of the control of the business owner, and we want them to be able to survive, if not thrive, through some of these really tough. I can't tell you how many business owners I've heard from who say it feels like sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards. Like right when they hit their stride, something happens, and that's just life. But we can try to make that a little easier or a little bit less hard.
Yeah, I think that's the key. I mean, you've certainly been struck with, this winter was brutal with the storms, obviously the tragedy at Brown, the problem with the bridge. I mean, you've been, you can't plan for these things. I mean, you plan the best you can, especially in the case of weather, you plan the best you can. But some things you just can't plan for, and you have to be very reactive, like you said. But I think you've done I think people forget it's a big city. I mean, it's not in New York or Boston, but it's a big city, and there's a lot of moving pieces for you to deal with. How do you feel? It's I don't want to joke about it because it's not funny, but the potholes and the snow removal. How do you think you can do little make some improvements? Where do you see with learn?
Well, it is. I mean, you're right. You said you can't plan for some of these things. I mean, we certainly prepare for snow, but if you had told me in last summer that we were going to receive the largest snowfall in recorded history, we might have planned differently, but that was not a reasonable assumption. And so we learned a lot through the January storm. In January, at the time, was a lot of snow for us. It now looks small in comparison to February. But in January, for example, for the first time in a decade, we actually hauled snow away. And so when February came around, we had those vendors and contracts and locations already identified. We'll have that going forward now. There's been a lot of questions about, I think people have seen the large industrial scale snowblowers that we brought in from the February blizzard. I actually don't think we should buy those. We've used we use those once in a generation, and each snowblower requires a licensed driver, and then had 12 dump trucks going with it. And so, the level of investment to use once every 50 years, I think, is a not wise investment of tax dollars, where we could rent them. We brought them in from out of state. We rented them. We now know we have contacts. And one of the things that I think really paid dividends in the February blizzard was the relationship building that I've been doing for years through the U.S. Conference of Mayors and with my colleagues. I determined early on, really by kind of day 2 of the blizzard, that every city and town and the state itself in Rhode Island, we were all competing for the same resources. We were all trying to go find the same front end loader. We were all trying to go find the same dump truck. And it was not fruitful. And so I started working the phones, calling colleagues. The mayor of Boston, who I have relationships, she sent down a truck. The mayor of Hartford was the guy who referred us to these industrial blowing operation. Some other mayors around the region recommended other vendors that came in from out of state that were not all being competed for by other Rhode Island cities and towns. And so that served the city really well. And I think ultimately our results were pretty good. We had the city passable in 3 days, and we were wide open in 5 days. This is a foot more snow than the blizzard of '78, which was 2 weeks of shutdown. And the other thing that I think hasn't gotten a lot of attention, but there's 50,000 more people that live in Providence today than in 1978. So with that comes, I don't know, maybe 20,000 more personal vehicles. All that density makes it harder. Those are cars that need to be towed or tagged or worked around. Those are 50,000 more people who need to put their trash out at the sidewalk. And it's just, you talk about this complex system, and that is very much, in fact, the job. But I was pretty satisfied with, and the feedback that we've gotten from the February blizzard was pretty satisfied.
Yeah,
We know whether it's this blizzard or not, we know that what follows winter is potholes. And so we're hard at work on that. That's not a failure of any government department. That is just the natural cycle of the weather. So we're hard at work out there filling potholes right now. We're moving as fast as possible. And March, April are always the worst months for the roads. Because that's the thaw out from winter, all the damage that was done by the plows, it gets revealed. And by the time spring has sprung here in Providence, the roads will be back in order.
That's great. No, I think, you made a very good point. I think any small business owner, would also identify the type of fiscal responsibility to not own that type of equipment that you talked about for something that may or may not happen again. Who knows? Especially with the constant change of climate. So that makes perfect sense. That really, from a business standpoint, I know some people get critical. They say, you can't run the government like a business, but sometimes it does make sense to run the government like a business. I think in that instance, that's a very, very good point that you made. So talking about infrastructure, talking about that thaw, a lot of small businesses were affected by rains and things of that nature. Again, things you can't control. You can't control the weather. But how do you feel? I know there's been progress made in Providence to improve drainage, things of that nature. Do you feel that's a good path that you're working on?
Yeah, we've made meaningful investments in our sewer and stormwater system, and to think about the cycle of weather, and I do think that some of this is climate change related. My first summer in office, we had chronic flooding. This was the summer of 23. Yeah. In 24, we had extreme high heat, particularly in the fall. We actually had a no school day in September for high heat for the first time in anyone's memory. We've often had high heat days in June, but not in September. And then this winter, we get the highest snowfall in recorded history. So it's like we've had all of the extremes with the weather. And you're right to point out the question with respect to flooding, because that's actually more frequent and pressing than snow like we received a couple of weeks ago. So we've made big investments in our sewer system. We've made meaningful improvements to the hurricane barrier, which will protect all of downtown in the event of a hurricane. And we're making big changes in stormwater management. What that means and where we're headed is there's going to be more water on the ground in the years to come. It is both fiscally irresponsible and perhaps even engineeringly impossible to build just bigger pipes and to try to catch every drop of rain in our sewer system, which we then pay to treat and then send out. And so the right thing to do, which is both environmentally responsible and fiscally responsible, is to work with property owners, both public and private property owners, to try to trap some of that rainwater on the property. So that means some depaving, some things that they call bioswales, which are sort of like trenches that you can plant and can be very attractive, but to keep the water out of the sewers in the first place. And so we've updated some of our building standards, we're making meaningful investments, and we're working with property owners to help them make these changes. Because if we all could just catch a little bit more water on our own property, then we can save literally hundreds of millions of dollars in sewer infrastructure that would have to be upgraded. And then the related costs. I mean, you talk about the costs for a small business owner. Some of it is city related, some of it's taxes, but a lot of it, particularly recently, is utilities. And
that's been one of the number one issues our members have talked about in the last few months is utilities.
Absolutely. One of those utility bills is the Bay Commission, is the Narragansett Bay Commission bill. You pay per cubic ounce or cubic gallon. So the more water you can keep out of your drains, you'll save money. And both business owners, homeowners, and everyone in between. Plus, it's good for the environment.
Right. Yeah. There's obviously a lot of benefit to it as well. Do you think You mentioned with the Washington Bridge, there were some grant programs for people that were affected by that. You mentioned the same, after the tragedy at Brown. You think there might be some opportunities out there for funding for small businesses for things like environmental issues like this?
Yeah, we're looking at programs to help with various environmental goals here in the city, which includes stormwater that we've talked about, but also includes electrification. We do have a pledge to be carbon neutral as a city by 2040. We're putting our money where our mouth is with public buildings, and we've made great progress on city-owned property, and particularly our schools. But if we're going to meet our climate goals, we also need private industry to make progress as well. And so, we're looking at financing tools and mechanisms to help facilitate that. In many cases, for example, there are federal rebate programs, but if you don't have the capital up front,
right,
it doesn't matter that you're going to get the rebate later. And so we're looking at programs that might help us if we can capture the rebate on behalf of a project, we could loan them the money up front, for example. And then, that's responsible to the taxpayer. It's of no detriment to the person doing the project. They get the benefits of the new equipment, and sort of everybody wins. As a large institution, the city, we have the ability to borrow money at a relatively low cost. And if we can kind of set up win-win-wins like that, we want to do it.
Excellent. Well, I mean, it's not the most exciting topic, but infrastructure is extraordinarily important to small businesses. So it's great to hear.
Exciting to me, David.
Yeah, it probably is. Knowing you, Brad, it probably is.
Right.
Let's talk about, before we go, let's talk about, you've done a great job. I know my business and several other businesses have talked about this, streamlining the process of permits and things of that nature in the city, digitizing a lot of it, getting it all online, thankfully. Where do you see that going forward? How do you think that may move forward? We do want to acknowledge, you've got a primary September 8th. You are running for mayor again. So if there's anything you want to add to that moving forward, please do.
So we do think we're making it easier to do business here in Providence, and in most cases, I think we're leading the state in terms of other municipalities. And so in terms of permitting and approval and just an orientation of city staff, that when you come in, we're trying to help you get to yes. We're not looking for ways to say no, and we're trying to make it faster, cheaper, and more predictable to get approvals here. The other thing that's worth pointing out is while I mentioned at the outset that business owners in their survey had not flagged taxes as their top concern, it is of course a concern, and we've made progress. We've been able to lower the commercial tax rate in my tenure, which is not something that happens very frequently, and I'm really proud of that. I will say, and I know you and your members know this, but I think when certain people, certain politicians, hear a proposal to cut the commercial tax rate, they think that we're doing a favor for large skyrise owners downtown Providence. The reality is the people who pay the commercial tax rate in this city are restaurants, our bodegas, all of our neighborhood businesses. They pay the commercial tax rate. Right. It's not one financial plaza. It's the corner store. And so that is an investment in our small businesses to cut the commercial tax rate. I'm really proud of that. And so as I look forward into a second term, and I think very, very much so, there's going to be a very clear choice in the election for mayor this year. I expect to have a competitive race. This is not a job I'm entitled to. I have to earn it, and I'm going to work really hard to get a chance to do it again. But I also know there are very clear differences between at least the current declared opponents and me, and someone who understands that small businesses are our neighbors, they employ our neighbors, and they are as worthy of prioritization in the city's agenda as anyone. I think will be a clear choice when there's going to be proposals for higher taxes and a whole host of free services that someone's going to have to pay for. So I look forward to I guess now 6 months ahead. It's perhaps 6 months exactly from the day when we're recording this. And hopefully will be an opportunity for me to go out into the neighborhoods here in Providence to talk about my record, talk about the plans coming forward, and then trust the voters of Providence to make the right choice for the next 4 years.
Great, of course. Anything else you want to touch on that we didn't mention before you go?
I mean, obviously, I'm really excited to continue to serve the people of Providence, but I work really hard to also make sure that people who don't live here get a chance to experience everything that we have to offer, and the travel and tourism realm. We've had a great couple of years, really record-breaking hotel stays and major events, with a couple major events coming this year, including World Cup and the 250th celebration. And so I'm going to continue to sell our city as a destination as well, which will benefit all of our local businesses, but also continue to keep us on the map, which we are clearly on the map these days for
absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely true. And yeah, tourism and travel is extremely important to the small businesses here, not just in Providence, all across the state, but obviously Providence, with the World Cup and everything, that's going to be huge. So thank you for that, bringing that up. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time today, sir. It's very much appreciated. This is the Providence Mayor, Brett Smiley, talking with us. And as I mentioned, he's up for re-election. We'll link all that up down below for you to take a look at as we approach the primaries. Take care, sir.
Thank you.
And thank you, as always, for watching or listening on your favorite podcast. We appreciate it. Always would like a like, subscribe, all those things you're supposed to be doing online, ratings. Please do that. And check us out at risbc.org. Again, I'll link all that up in the show notes. And until next time, thank you for watching and take care.